How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball and welcome back to another week of Premier League predictions, where it's just a week before the international break, the dreaded international break, where there's another one next month. But before we get into the predictions, we are going to get into the prediction that we did make for the midweek football, which was Luton against Burnley. It finished 2-1 to Burnley. Sim went for 3-1. I went for 2-1. So that result is completely overturned overnight. Sim gets a point. I get 5 points. But I mean, I didn't watch too much of this game because the Champions League was on that night, but Luton did get back with about 5 minutes to go, and then Burnley hit straight back and won the game 2-1.
Yeah, and it was a great last-minute goal from Larson, cutting in from the left-hand side, left-footed effort from the edge of the box, rifled into the far corner. Brilliant win for Burnley, although a bit of luck. I think they should have conceded a penalty when Morris goes over in the box, and I don't know why VAR is not intervening. That was a bit of luck that went against Luton at that point. I think the game was at 0-0 at that point, so Luton with a little bit unlucky. In terms of how the game went, both teams had chances. A draw was probably a fair result, but Burnley stole it right at the end. And look, they needed that win, didn't they? Because they haven't won all season, albeit they've played fairly well, but they've had some tough games, but they passed a test where these are the games they're really going to be comparing themselves to, where they need the points. And after Luton got their first one on the weekend, they needed to respond. So a great win for Burnley.
So does that leave that with Bournemouth, the only winless team in the Premier League this season, or is there one more?
Sheffield United
and
as well.
Sheffield United,
Bournemouth,
yeah.
Sheffield United, yeah.
All right. Well, if you are new around here, the way the scoring works, as you can see on screen, it is 106 to Sim, 107 to me, toing and froing every week. But the way it works is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. At the end of the show, we do pick a star man as well. And that man, you cannot pick them again for the rest of the season once you do pick them. And it's 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. And let's get into the weekend's action, starting off at 12:30, kickoff, Luton against Tottenham. Sim's gone for 1-0 to Spurs. I've gone for 3-0. And yeah, I think even though Spurs do have a few injuries in the front line, I still think we've got more than enough quality to to put away this Luton side, even in a small pitch, which might be a bit hard for Spurs to try and find some spaces. But I feel like we've got enough quality to go find a few goals. So I've gone for 3-0.
Look, I think Spurs should be dominant and we should be able to create chances. We do have some injury problems going into this game. And I think Luton are going to really try and use their physicality to stop us. And it's a small pitch. It's a tight pitch. So there's not going to be much spaces to play in. So I do envisage Tottenham having a bit of difficulty, maybe just making their quality count. But I do think they'll do it in the end. But I've only gone for Spurs to win 1-0. So a closer game than maybe you would hope.
Moving on to Burnley against Chelsea at Turf Moor. Sim's gone for 2-1. I've actually gone for 2-0, so it's a bit of a typo there. But yeah, why 2-1?
Yeah, I think Chelsea impressive against Fulham, especially in the first half. I thought they actually put away some of the chances they created, which is unlike Chelsea so far this season. And I think Burnley, albeit I do think Burnley are going to play their football like they do, and I'm sure they'll create some chances. I'm sure Chelsea will find some difficulty in the game. But I think Chelsea are starting to maybe turn the corner a bit with their finishing ability. Broja in the front line, obviously got a goal. Mudryk is starting to really improve his performances as well. So I think the quality that Chelsea have should be a bit too much for Burnley, so I've gone for 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, Broja did score, but it was a very lucky goal with Tim Ream just like playing it off him essentially. But I think Nicholas Jackson will probably come back in for this game. I've gone for 2-0. Look, Chelsea, as much as they've been getting poor results, they have been playing well in parts of games where they've been creating chances, not just putting the ball away. And I think against this Burnley side, who leave it very open at the back, play a bit naive, I think Chelsea will find those spaces and win the game. So essentially, I've gone for 2-0 to Chelsea. Next up is Everton against Bournemouth. Sim's gone for 2-0 to Everton. I've gone for 1-1. And I've not been impressed with Everton whatsoever. They obviously lost at home last week to Luton, which was a tragic result for them, to be honest. But that was on the back of an impressive win against Brentford. This time out against Bournemouth, again, it's another really important game for both sides, to be honest. Bournemouth are winless in the Premier League, and I got a feeling that these two teams might cancel each other out a little bit. Bournemouth, I think, will look the better side going forward, but Everton will be a hard nut to crack, so I've gone for 1-1.
Yeah, I think we know how Bournemouth are going to play. They're going to be open. They're going to be trying to press Everton really high. But I actually think Everton are going to counter-press them and are going to go for the throat a bit. And I think that Bournemouth, the way they play, could really suit what Everton are trying to do in this game. And albeit I can see Bournemouth maybe dominating possession, but I see Everton pressing really high, catching Bournemouth in their build-up play, because I don't think their build-up play is particularly strong. So I think that Everton, albeit they lost last week to Luton, but they did beat Villa and they did beat Brentford in the week before that. So I think at home against this Bournemouth side, they'll see it as an opportunity to get 3 points. I think they'll do that. So I won for 2-0.
Next up is Fulham against Sheffield United. We've both gone for the exact same scoreline here in a draw 0-0 at Craven Cottage. And yeah, I don't think it needs too much of an explanation why we're going for this. Fulham finding it hard to score at the moment since selling Mitrovic and replacing him for Raul Jimenez. And Sheffield United, I mean, they've found it also hard to score all season, to be honest. But both have fairly good defences, although Fulham's defence against Chelsea was definitely found wanting. But I can't really see anyone breaking the deadlock in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Sheffield United give better teams a tough time, albeit they lost 8-0 to Newcastle. But I think maybe you have to chalk that off to like a one-off. Fulham, they can't seem to score at the moment. The goals they've been scoring have been like very much moments in play rather than like good build-up or anything like that. Mitrovic has been a massive miss. Jimenez is not cutting it at the moment. And also they're lacking the creativity. Wilson and Willian on the wings are really not performing at the moment. They're really struggling to create any sort of chances. But they're coming up a Sheffield United team who are also struggling to really kind of assert themselves in the attacking phases of play at the moment. And with their back three system, I really see Fulham again struggling to create chances, but I also see Sheffield United struggling to take advantage of that. And I think Fulham should also be able to stop Sheffield United. So I've just gone for 0-0.
Next up is a Manchester United against Brentford. And again, we've gone for the exact same scoreline here in 1-1. So you're going for more drop points for Manchester United?
Yeah, I think Man United at the moment, they're really struggling to control games. And I think Brentford are definitely a very good away team on the counter-attack, albeit they have only won one game this season, so they're struggling within their own right. But I think I think Man United are definitely going to come out and try and win this game. They're going to try and dominate Brentford. And I think Brentford could definitely catch them out in transition. I think Mbeumo and Wissa are two very good strikers in those kind of situations. And I think Man United are struggling to contain teams at the moment, so I can see them definitely struggling to contain Brentford. But Højlund was very impressive midweek, so I do think he can give Brentford a lot of trouble, but I just couldn't separate it, so I went for 1-1.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same at the moment. I think Manchester United are obviously going for a really bad moment at the moment, and so are Brentford, to be honest. Everyone expected a bit more from Brentford than what they're showing so far this season. Going to Old Trafford, where United are usually getting the results, apart from the last couple of weeks against, Crystal Palace and Brighton. With this Brentford side knowing that they need points because they just keep dropping points every week, I can see them being quite a hard nut to crack. But Manchester United finding a goal from somewhere, maybe Rasmus Højlund or something like that. But I can't really separate the two sides. Both of them are quite off form, to be honest. Next up is Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. I've gone for 1-1 here. Sim's gone for 1-0 to Forest. And actually, I didn't take into account that Eberechi Eze is out for this game, which I'm just remembering now. But having said that, I still think Palace can find a goal from somewhere, maybe a set piece with Joachim Andersen with his big aerial presence. Nottingham Forest as well, a bit hot and cold, to be honest. 1 week they're looking good. Well, they look good in the early stages of the season, and maybe they are reverting back to their quality type in the last couple of weeks. So again, I can't really separate these two sides.
Yeah, I've gone for a tight game where both teams will probably have their chances restricted, but I did take into account Eze's injury, and I think without that creativity, with him in the team, they might win this game, but without him, I don't know where the creativity is coming from. I don't know where the goals are coming from. I know Edouard might be injured as well, so they're relying on Mateta really to try and get him out of trouble. Apart from him, like I'm looking at the other players in the forward line, Jordan Ayew, Jeffrey Schlupp, like I'm not convinced that they're really going to break the deadlock against Nottingham Forest. Forest, on the other hand, away from home, they're pretty solid at the moment. They've got some good forward players that can hurt Palace. I know Palace are a good defensive team, so I don't see Forest creating loads of chances, but I've got them to create a few and put one of them away. So I've just gone for Forest to shade at 1-0.
Next up, Brighton against Liverpool, which is going to be a tasty game on Sunday. Sim's gone for 4-2 to Liverpool. I've gone for 3-1, but you've gone for a 6-goal thriller.
Yeah, plenty of goals. We saw against Villa how Brighton can really struggle in the defensive phase of the game. That I don't really rate their defense, to be honest. If I look at like individuals, I think they're really struggling. And I think unless they're really super dominant on the ball, like maybe they were against United, if they give the opposition any encouragement, they're definitely there to be got at. There are definitely gaps there, but they're a very good footballing team in their own right. We know how Liverpool like to play as well, very open. So I definitely think that Brighton can cause a lot of trouble, especially with Matoma on the wings. I can definitely see him causing a lot of trouble down that left-hand side. But I think Liverpool, how they like to play, they're very good in transition and they're very good in possession as well. And I think that's going to be way too much for Brighton. So I've gone for 4-2.
Yeah, I'm looking at this game and I'm massively taking into account the European exploits of both sides, where Liverpool obviously used to playing European football year in, year out. Brighton, they're not used to it. And on top of them not used to it, they've got a really difficult game away at Marseille, which I think they're going to take a lot of energy into that game. And you saw after playing European football, they got absolutely battered by Aston Villa in the week after. So I got a feeling that they might run out of legs in this game a little bit, where Liverpool, on the back of that game against Tottenham, where they felt very much hard done by the referees and VAR and everything like that, I feel like Liverpool are going to come out with a bit of a point to prove in this game, and I think it's going to be a bit of one-way traffic, and I've gone for 3-1, albeit I can see a goal for Brighton at some point in the game, but I just think Liverpool are going to tear them apart at times with the poor showing at defence that Brighton have shown in the last couple of weeks. And actually, I've been actually fairly impressed with Liverpool's defence, because I didn't come into this season impressed with them. They are conceding every game pretty much away from home, but it's more or less never more than one goal. So I've gone for 3-1 to Liverpool. Next up is West Ham against Newcastle. Both are going for this same scoreline here in 1-1. And my reasoning behind 1-1, I think Newcastle obviously had a really hard game, but they actually tore PSG to shreds in a 4-1 victory at St James's Park, and I thought that was a very energy sapping performance. West Ham, on the other hand, they've got a Europa League game on Thursday night tonight to contend with, so we'll see how they get on with that and how much energy they do have to expand in that game. But West Ham actually are probably more used to playing European football than Newcastle at this stage. Playing the last 2 years, they've played Thursday night football. Newcastle, after European football, they actually did beat Sheffield United 8-0, but I think that was more down to how poor Sheffield United were on the day. So I think these two teams will cancel each other out, but I think with Newcastle, they are definitely on an upward trajectory at the moment. So I wouldn't be too surprised if actually Newcastle just nick this one.
Yeah, I think momentum could be a very, very powerful thing for Newcastle, because they're on some really good form at the moment. But I agree. I think not only was it very energy sapping in midweek, but they don't have, I feel like, the squad to replicate that performance in very quick succession. I think West Ham, in a weird way, have a deeper squad in a sense that to deal with what they need to do. And I can see them making a lot of changes on Thursday, bring in the likes of Kudus and maybe Danny Ings and make a few changes, and then go back to their first 11 on Sunday. So and give Newcastle a really difficult time. I don't see them winning the game, though. I still think it's going to be a very close game. So I've gone for 1-1, but I see West Ham maybe having the better of it.
All right, next up is Wolves against Aston Villa. I think they call this the Black Country Derby. 1-1 Tim's gone for. I've gone for 2-1 to Villa. You think Villa are going to drop points this weekend?
Yeah, I think... Look, they've got midweek games as well. Moussa Diaby is missing from midweek, so I'm going to assume he's out for the weekend as well. And without Diaby there, I feel like they really lose that clinical or really impactful player in that final third. I think he makes such a difference for them with that second striker. I don't know who's going to take that role without him, but I think if Wolves can keep Ollie Watkins quiet, I think they can go a long way to maybe grabbing a point in this game off the back of a very good win against Man City last week. So albeit a bit of luck, they had one shot on target and then winning the game 2-1, so definitely a bit of luck there. But they have been playing fairly well at the moment, Wolves, and especially at home in a derby. I think they're going to make things difficult for Villa, and Villa aren't the type of team who are going to create loads and loads of chances. I know they beat Brighton 6-1 last week, but I think it's going to be a very different game against a more solid side defensively in Wolves. So I see them having a bit more trouble creating chances than they did last week. So I've gone for 1-1.
Yeah, Pedro Neto, obviously candidate for Player of the Month this year for Wolves, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough for them to take points against a strong Aston Villa side, who Unai Emery obviously is up for Manager of the Month, and they're going really well so far this season. I think they had a shocking performance and result first game of the season, but since then I think have dramatically turned it around. I think since that time only losing to Liverpool, if I'm mistaken. So
did lose in the Europa League though.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Premier League. But I think with the derby out, it will be a big loss for them. But I think they've got players that can kind of produce for them. I think Zaniolo has been a little bit impressive since coming in, albeit not had any goal contributions as of yet. They've also got the other chap from Leverkusen, Leon Bailey, and Ollie Watkins obviously is on stunning form at the moment, who's also up for Player of the Month this month, scoring a hat-trick last time out. So I do think Villa do have the firepower that can really combat Wolves, but I think it'll be a very close game and a very tightly fought encounter and highly fought encounter in this derby, but I've just gone for Villa to shade it at 2-1. And now we move on to the big game of the weekend, Arsenal against Manchester City at the Emirates, and me and Sim have both gone for the same scoreline here in 2-2. Another Desmond at home for Arsenal. And what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, look, Man City without Rodri, it's going to be difficult for them to contain Arsenal. Just look, we'll see what kind of injury problems Arsenal have going into this. Saka obviously hobbled off in midweek, so he's a serious injury doubt, but it seems as though everyone else like Rice and Saliba should be fit, so I think they'll have majority of their players available. Rodri is a massive miss. Apart from him, I think Man City should be fairly full strength. Doku's in great form. He had a brilliant game in midweek. Alvarez and Haaland are creating a great partnership, so I still think Arsenal will struggle to contain this Man City team, especially how Guardiola has that ability to go direct to Erling Haaland as well, which I feel like Arsenal don't really have that ability with their front line. But without Rodri, I still see Arsenal creating lots of chances, and even without Saka there, I can see them scoring a couple goals with their front line without Man City having that proper protection in front of their defence. So I've just gone for a highly entertaining 2-2. Yeah,
I do think Saka is going to end up making it for some reason or another. I mean, he's been kind of flirting with injury for the past 3 games now. He's gone off early in a few games. I think this one did seem a bit worse than maybe the other ones, but I do feel like when push comes to shove, he will make it at the end of it. But if he doesn't make it, without Saka and Martinelli, I do think it's going to be hard for them to find joy against this Man City team. But Saka is the guy who's producing for them every week with goals or assists. Even if he isn't playing well, he's producing the goods at the other end of the pitch. But Man City, obviously losing to Wolves last time out, losing in the Cup as well. So they lost 2 games in the space of a week. And I think Pep Guardiola will grill it into this game. They just cannot lose this game, and they have to get the points on the board. With Alvarez and Haaland up front, well, Alvarez is probably the man more on form than Erling Haaland at the moment. So even if going direct to Haaland, he'll get the knockdowns to Julian Alvarez, and I think Man City will find the joy. But seeing as it is if this was at the Etihad, I'll definitely be putting it down as a Man City win. But seeing as it is at the Emirates, I've gone for them to split the spoils at 2-2. And if our scores are correct, then by the end of the weekend, Tottenham will be sitting at top of the Premier League going into the second international break. But let's move on to the star men. Both of us gone for wide players. Sim's gone for Mykhailo Mudryk of Chelsea.
Yeah, and I think away at Burnley, off the back of his first goal of the season against Fulham, he'll be full of confidence. I know he went off half time, but I think he should be all right for this game. I see him getting another start. Everyone's very positive about him, and I think, I'm not saying he's going to go on a run of form, but I reckon he can take that form from the Fulham game into this one and get another goal contribution. So I've gone for Mudryk.
Yeah, I've gone for Dejan Kulusevski. I had in the mind of the Chelsea-Luton game where Raheem Sterling on the right wing just tore their left back to shreds in that game. And I just got a feeling with Dejan Kulusevski's ball carrying ability, it could be maybe not the same story, but a bit of a similar story where Kulusevski could have a lot to say in this game. And I've been on record as saying I'm not really happy with his goal contribution, especially assist output. And I think against the Luton side, maybe Kulusevski can really turn up in this game and provide a couple of assists and maybe even a goal on the day. So that's why I've gone for Kulusevski. Sim has gone for Mykhailo Mudryk. Let me know in the comments section below what your predictions are this weekend, who your star man is, and who do you think is going to come out on top this weekend, me or Sim. But thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.